Could you tell me why this Saint Sebastian is important?
German wood sculpture of the early 16th century barely survives.
Yeah.
And tremendous losses over the course of its history, over the last 500 years, have meant that our understanding of its period's cultural production is vastly diminished. You have to go to some of the great museums of the world, like the Germanisches Nationalmuseum in Munich, or in Nuremberg or in Berlin, to find the greatest late medieval and early Renaissance wood sculpture to have been made in Germany. Now, what we find a total privilege is that we get to handle an example of just the top level of quality. And this piece in particular, this Saint Sebastian, which was carved by the southern German sculptor Jorg Lederer between around 1515 and 1520 for a much larger altarpiece. So we are looking at a fragment. Mm-hmm. But it is with total polychromy, total gilding. All of this surface has barely been touched over time. There are damages, there are areas of loss, but it's in a state of preservation that you really do not find today outside of the world's greatest museums. So it is a rare, important document of a type of sculpture that the public doesn't really get to see very often.
And you compare it to the Dürer in sculpture.
Yeah, okay, so...
can we say so?
Yes, we can. Jorg Lederer is an artist. He's not a household name. You're not going to go home and start chatting about him and gossiping. He is an artist who very few people today have ever heard of, but who really is, in 3 dimensions, what an artist like Dürer was doing in 2 dimensions. He is somebody who is innovating and expanding the capabilities and the potential of the sculptural medium. He's working in limewood. He's one of the great sculptors of the German Renaissance, of the early 16th century, working in a material that is notoriously hard to handle and to carve. So he's working with a timber that as he carves it, it wants to season, dry out, warp and crack. And any German sculptor of this date knew that he had to, or she had to, be very careful in how they treated the material. So this has been carefully carved so that the seasoning process, the drying process, the aging process wouldn't develop into splits through the piece, losses of parts of the timber, and where he has had to negotiate adding parts. So, for instance, the forearm of Sebastian, it is just too delicate to have been carved out of a single block. So he added a new piece so that he could better carve the areas around it. So it's somebody who's thinking almost like a mathematician. He's being very careful to combine and put things together in the best way.
But who can buy that?
Who can buy a piece like this?
Yes.
Well, it's probably not going to be everybody. It's an important work of art. It's really a work of German sculpture of the first importance and rank. So it's going to be one of the world's great museums or private collectors with a real devotion to this area and a real love of this material.
And devotion is the right word. Merci beaucoup.